A black man goes undercover. At an elite country club, the racist owner of the club kicks him out and is hit with karma the next day. Marcus Williams adjusted his tailored suit in the gleaming mirror of the country club's lavish restroom. The fabric felt smooth against his skin, a stark contrast to the tension knotting in his stomach. Every detail of his appearance had been meticulously crafted to help him blend into this world of privilege and exclusivity. Yet, as he gazed at his reflection, he couldn't shake the feeling that he was an imposter in a world designed to keep people like him out. He stepped out of the restroom, the heavy oak door creaking as it swung open. The buzz of conversation enveloped him as he entered the main lounge, a space adorned with crystal chandeliers and rich mahogany furniture. Members lounged in plush chairs, sipping cocktails and laughing, their faces flushed with the warmth of privilege. It was a different world, one where his presence was an anomaly. As he walked across the marbled floor, Marcus's ears perked up at snippets of conversation. He caught a couple of members laughing derisively about a recent scandal involving a local charity. Their laughter filled the air like a toxic cloud, laden with disdain for anyone who didn't fit their narrow definition of acceptable. It stung, igniting a fire of determination within him. He was here to expose the corruption, to pull back the velvet curtain and reveal the rot beneath the gilded surface. Marcus approached the bar, where a sympathetic bartender caught his eye. Laura, with her warm smile and quick wit, had already become a small beacon of hope amidst the hostility. "What'll it be?" she asked, her voice low and conspiratorial. "Something strong," Marcus replied, glancing around to ensure no one was watching. "I need to keep my wits about me." Coming right up, she poured a bourbon, her hand steady as she placed it in front of him. "Just so you know, you're not the first person I've seen try to break into this scene. They don't take kindly to outsiders." "I can handle it," he said, forcing a confident smile. "I'm here to do some digging." Laura leaned in closer, her voice dropping to a whisper. "Be careful. Richard Caldwell has eyes everywhere. He doesn't tolerate anyone sniffing around his business." A shiver ran down Marcus's spine at the mention of Caldwell's name. Richard Caldwell was the owner of this exclusive country club, a man whose very presence seemed to warp the air around him. A pompous figure with a disdain for anyone who didn't fit his narrow vision of membership. "I'm not afraid of him," Marcus replied, though he felt the weight of his own words. As he sipped his drink, Marcus surveyed the room, scanning for potential allies. The club members were a mix of old money and newly minted wealthy, their conversations laced with arrogance and entitlement. He overheard snippets of conversations, some about golf scores and others about the latest luxury cars. But beneath the surface, he sensed the undercurrents of darker dealings. Just then, a burly man with a square jaw approached him. Greg Thompson, a club member known for his aggressive demeanor. "What's a black man doing in here?" Greg's voice boomed, drawing the attention of nearby members. The room fell silent, all eyes on Marcus. Marcus's heart raced, but he steadied himself, refusing to show fear. "I'm considering joining," he said, keeping his tone even. "Yeah, right. You think you can just stroll in here like you belong?" Greg stepped closer, his bulk blocking Marcus's path. The tension crackled in the air. Laura's voice cut through the silence. "Hey, Greg, back off! He's a potential investor." Her tone was firm but supportive, and she stepped between Marcus and Greg, her presence a shield. "Investor, huh? Well, I'm not sure this place is ready for your kind." Greg sneered, but Laura's unwavering gaze made him rethink his approach. With a dismissive grunt, he stepped back, but the threat still lingered in the air. "Thanks," Marcus said, exhaling slowly as he regained his composure. "Just stay close to me," Laura advised, her eyes darting around the room. "Caldwell is bad news and he's not going to like having you around." Marcus nodded, grateful for her support. "I need to find out what's really going on here. There are whispers about money laundering and discrimination. I can't leave without proof." Laura hesitated, glancing around to ensure no one was eavesdropping. "I've heard things too. There are deliveries that happen late at night, and not all of them are on the books. Just be careful, you're stepping into a lion's den." As Marcus moved away from the bar, he felt a mix of exhilaration and dread. He had to gather as much information as possible without blowing his cover. He made his way to a group of members gathered around a table, their laughter ringing hollow against the backdrop of opulence. He blended in, offering a disarming smile as he listened. to their conversation. "Did you hear about the land deal Caldwell just secured?" one member boasted, slapping his palm on the table. "He's going to make a killing." "Good for him," another chimed in, his tone dripping with sarcasm. "Let's just hope he doesn't lose it all to a lawsuit. Those minorities are always looking for a handout." Marcus clenched his fists, the casual racism cutting deep. The glint of their champagne flutes caught the light, and he couldn't help but feel that their laughter was a mockery of everything he stood for. He needed to get closer, to dig deeper. After a few minutes, he excused himself and decided to explore the club further. He wandered through the hallways, eyes scanning for anything that might offer a clue. As he passed the kitchen, a maintenance worker caught his eye, his face weary and worn. "Hey," Marcus said, approaching him. "You work here, right? I'm interested in the club's operations." The man eyed him warily. "What's it to you?" "Just doing some research," Marcus replied, keeping his tone casual. "I've heard some rumors about unusual deliveries. Can you shed any light on that?" The worker hesitated, glancing over his shoulder as if expecting someone to overhear. "I shouldn't be talking about this," he muttered, but the urgency in Marcus's voice seemed to sway him. "Late at night, there's a truck that comes in through the back. They say it's just supplies, but I've seen the driver. He doesn't look like he's here for food." "Do you know what he's delivering?" Marcus pressed, feeling a surge of hope. "Can't say for sure, but I think it's cash, lots of it. And there's talk of Caldwell being involved in something big, something illegal." The worker's voice trembled as he spoke, fear evident in his eyes. "Thanks, man. You've been helpful," Marcus said, his mind racing with the implications. He had to find out more about Caldwell's operations and the mysterious deliveries. As he left the kitchen, a sense of urgency washed over him. He needed to act quickly, but as he stepped back into the main lounge, he caught sight of Caldwell himself, his imposing figure surrounded by admirers. The man oozed power, his arrogance palpable even from a distance. Marcus felt a knot tighten in his stomach as he watched Caldwell's interactions. He was a master manipulator, charming those around him while harboring dark secrets beneath the surface. The stakes were higher than he had anticipated, and he needed to be cautious. As he moved back toward the bar, he overheard Caldwell in a heated conversation. "I won't let anyone jeopardize my plans, you understand?" The threat in his voice was unmistakable, sending a chill down Marcus's spine. Just as he was about to turn away, Caldwell's sharp blue eyes locked onto him. "And who might you be?" Caldwell's voice dripped with condescension, the room falling silent once more. Marcus felt exposed, the weight of the room's scrutiny heavy on his shoulders. "Just a guest considering membership," he said, forcing a confident smile. "Is that so?" Caldwell's gaze narrowed, suspicion evident. "I suggest you tread carefully. This isn't a place for your kind." The remark stung, but Marcus held his ground, refusing to back down. "I'm here to explore opportunities just like everyone else." Caldwell chuckled darkly, the sound sending ripples of unease through the crowd. "Opportunities indeed. Just remember, not everyone gets to play in this league." The tension in the air escalated, and Marcus felt the walls closing in. He needed to escape before Caldwell's scrutiny drew more unwanted attention. With a nod to Laura, he slipped out of the lounge, his heart racing. Outside, the cool night air hit him like a wave, grounding him for a moment. He leaned against the brick wall, taking deep breaths to steady himself. This was a dangerous game, one that could cost him everything. But the fire ignited by the injustices he had witnessed burned brighter than ever. As he walked back to his car, the weight of the evening hung heavy on his shoulders. He had gathered some valuable intel, but it wasn't enough. The deeper he probed, the more he realized just how insidious Caldwell's operation was. He needed to return to the club, to dig deeper into the darkness that cloaked its members. And as he drove away, he could feel the resolve hardening within him. He wouldn't just be a spectator in this game. He was determined to be the catalyst for change, no matter the cost. Tomorrow, he would return. The next morning, Marcus Williams awoke with the sun filtering through the blinds of his modest apartment, the harsh light illuminating the dark circles under his eyes. He had barely slept, his mind racing with the events of the previous night at the country club. The tension, the hostility, and the looming figure of Richard Caldwell haunted him. He had uncovered some information, but it wasn't nearly enough to expose the vast web of corruption that sprawled before him. He dressed quickly, donning another tailored suit, This one a deep navy blue that contrasted sharply with the white surroundings he was about to enter again. The fabric hugged his frame, a reminder of the persona he needed to assume in order to navigate the elitist environment of the Caldwell Country Club. As he checked his reflection in the mirror, he couldn't help but feel the weight of expectation settle on his shoulders. He wasn't just an investigator. He was a beacon of hope for those who felt oppressed by the very establishment he was infiltrating. Arriving at the club, Marcus immediately sensed the shift in atmosphere. The air was thick with anticipation, a palpable energy that made his skin prickle. He learned from Laura that the country club was hosting a high-stakes gala that evening, a lavish affair where Caldwell was set to finalize a significant business deal. This was his chance. If he could gather enough evidence during the event, he might be able to bring Caldwell down once and for all. As he stepped through the grand entrance, the sight of the opulent decorations took his breath away. Crystal chandeliers hung like icicles from the ceiling, casting a warm glow over the polished marble floors. Members mingled in tailored suits and elegant gowns, laughter and clinking glasses creating a symphony of exclusivity. Marcus felt the familiar knot tighten in his stomach, a mix of excitement and dread swirling within him. He made his way to the bar where Laura was once again behind the counter, her expression shifting from concern to relief as she spotted him. "You're back," she said, her voice low but warm. "I was worried you wouldn't show." "I can't back down now," Marcus replied, a sense of determination settling over him. "I need to find out what Caldwell's up to tonight." Laura glanced around, her demeanor shifting to one of caution. "Just be careful. I've heard whispers that Caldwell's been on edge. He knows someone's been snooping around." "I'm aware," Marcus said, the memory of Caldwell's piercing gaze still fresh in his mind. "But if I can get close enough tonight, I might be able to gather the evidence we need." As Laura prepared his drink, a sudden power outage plunged the club into darkness. Gasps filled the room, and a few members laughed nervously, the sound echoing against the high ceilings. Marcus seized the moment, slipping away from the bar to explore the dimly lit corridors that branched off the main lounge. He needed to see if he could catch any hushed conversations or suspicious activities happening in the shadows. Navigating through the darkened halls, Marcus felt a rush of adrenaline. The club's usual grandeur had transformed into something menacing under the cloak of darkness. He paused outside a door marked "Staff Only," his heart pounding as he listened intently. Low voices filtered through the cracks, two members discussing Caldwell's latest venture. "He's really pushing for this deal," one voice said, a hint of concern lacing his tone. "If it goes south, it could ruin him." "Or make him richer than ever," the other scoffed. "He's got connections, and he'll do whatever it takes to protect his empire." Marcus felt a surge of urgency. This was the insight he needed. He shifted his weight, preparing to move closer when the lights flickered back to life, illuminating the corridor. The door creaked open, and a security guard stepped out, his eyes narrowing as he spotted Marcus. "What are you doing here?" the guard demanded, crossing his arms over his chest. The tension in the air thickened, and Marcus knew he had to think fast. "Just taking a stroll," he replied, forcing a casual smile. "Got lost in the dark, I guess." "Yeah? You don't belong here," the guard said, his voice low and threatening. "You need to leave before I call security." Before Marcus could respond, he felt a surge of panic. He couldn't draw attention to himself, not now. "I was just about to head back to the main lounge," he said, taking a step back, but the guard moved closer, blocking his path. "Not so fast," the guard said, his eyes narrowing. "I don't like the look of you. You're not one of us." Marcus's heart raced, and he could feel the walls closing in. Just as the situation began to escalate, Laura appeared, her expression fierce. "Tom, back off. He's with me," she said, stepping between Marcus and the guard. Tom hesitated, glancing between the two of them. "He doesn't belong here, Laura. He's just a guest," Laura interjected, her voice firm. "And if you keep harassing him, I'll have to report you to Caldwell. We don't need this kind of drama during the gala." The guard scowled, but stepped back, clearly unwilling to challenge Laura further. "Fine, but keep an eye on him," he muttered before walking away. "Thanks," Marcus said, exhaling a shaky breath as the adrenaline began to ebb. "I owe you one." "Just be careful," Laura replied, her expression softening. "Caldwell's temper is volatile. If he finds out you're onto him—" "I know what's at stake," Marcus said, determination hardening his resolve. "I can't let this opportunity slip away." As the evening wore on, Marcus mingled with the club's elite, his mind racing with the knowledge he'd gathered. The gala was in full swing, members flaunting their wealth and influence, oblivious to the darker dealings lurking just beneath the surface. He felt like an outsider, but there was a purpose to his presence. He overheard snippets of conversation, each one layered with implications. "Did you see Caldwell's new acquisition? It's worth millions," one member boasted, his voice dripping with arrogance. "Sure, but at what cost?" another retorted, a hint of skepticism in their tone. "I heard he's involved in something shady." Marcus's ears perked up. He needed to find out more about these rumors. As he navigated through the crowd, he spotted Caldwell at the center of it all, his presence commanding attention. The man was a master of ceremonies, weaving through the throng of admirers, his smug smile never faltering. "Ladies and gentlemen," Caldwell's voice boomed, cutting through the chatter, "tonight we celebrate not just our successes but the future that lies ahead. I'm thrilled to announce a groundbreaking partnership that will elevate our club to new heights." The room erupted in applause, but Marcus felt a cold knot of dread settle in his stomach. This was it, the moment he had been waiting for, and yet he felt like he was standing on the precipice of a cliff, ready to jump into the unknown. If he could gather evidence during this announcement, he might be able to expose Caldwell's corrupt dealings. He pushed his way closer to the front, his heart racing as he prepared to record the moment. As Caldwell continued to speak, Marcus's focus sharpened. "With this partnership, we will be able to expand our facilities and enhance our services. Our club will become a beacon of excellence, a symbol of privilege that is rightfully ours." The members cheered, but Marcus's mind raced with the implications behind Caldwell's words. This was not just about expansion, it was about consolidating power and wealth, and he needed to connect the dots. Just then, Caldwell's gaze locked onto Marcus, a predatory gleam in his eye. "And let's not forget the importance of maintaining our standards," he continued, his tone dripping with disdain. "We must ensure that our club remains exclusive, a sanctuary for those who truly belong." The crowd erupted in applause once more, but Marcus felt the air grow thick with tension. He was an outsider, and Caldwell's words cut deep. Anger bubbled within him, but he forced himself to remain calm. He had to be strategic about this. As the applause died down, Marcus seized the moment. He stepped forward, his voice steady as he called out, "What about the rumors of discrimination and illegal activities happening behind the scenes? How can we trust the integrity of this club when there are whispers of corruption?" The room fell silent, a collective gasp echoing through the crowd. Caldwell's expression shifted from surprise to fury, his eyes narrowing dangerously. "Who do you think you are?" he spat, the venom lacing his words palpable. "This is not a place for your kind to air grievances." Marcus stood his ground, the anger fueling his resolve. "I'm just here to ensure that everyone is treated fairly. If there are issues, they need to be addressed." Caldwell stepped closer, his voice low and menacing. "You have no idea what you're getting into. You're playing a dangerous game, and you'll end up regretting it." Just then, a commotion erupted on the other side of the room, a crash, followed by shouting. The distraction momentarily pulled the attention away from Marcus, and he seized the opportunity to slip away from Caldwell's piercing gaze. He needed to regroup, to think. In the chaos, he ducked into a nearby hallway, his heart pounding in his chest. He leaned against the wall, taking a deep breath as he tried to calm his racing thoughts. He had pushed too far, too fast, but he couldn't abandon his mission now. He had come too far to turn back. As he gathered his thoughts, he felt a presence behind him and turned to see Laura approaching, her expression a mix of concern and admiration. "What happened out there?" she asked, her voice low. "I called Caldwell out in front of everyone," Marcus admitted, the adrenaline still coursing through his veins. "I didn't think he'd react that way." Laura shook her head, her eyes wide. "You can't just confront him like that. He's not someone you want to provoke. He's a viper." "I know," Marcus replied, frustration bubbling to the surface. "But if I don't stand up, who will? This place is rotten and it needs to be exposed." "But you need to be smart about it," she urged, her voice urgent. "If he finds out you're gathering evidence, he won't hesitate to silence you." "I get it," Marcus said, running a hand through his hair. "But I have to make a risk. I have to find out what he's hiding." Just then, a shadow loomed at the end of the hallway. Caldwell's silhouette appeared, flanked by a couple of his loyal members. The tension in the air thickened, and Marcus's instincts kicked in. They were closing in. "Looks like you've overstayed your welcome, Marcus," Caldwell said, his voice dripping with malice. "I suggest you leave before things get ugly." "Make me," Marcus shot back, the fire of defiance burning in his chest. He could feel Laura's presence beside him, a silent support that bolstered his courage. "You think this is a game?" Caldwell sneered, stepping closer. "You're nothing but a nuisance, a fly buzzing around my head. I won't tolerate it." Before Marcus could respond, the two members flanking Caldwell advanced, their expressions menacing. He felt the weight of the situation escalate, a palpable threat hovering in the air. "Time to go, Marcus," Laura said quietly, her voice urgent. "Now!" With no time to think, Marcus turned on his heel and sprinted down the hallway, adrenaline propelling him forward. He could hear Caldwell's furious shouts behind him, the sound echoing as he raced toward the nearest exit. Bursting through a set of double doors, Marcus found himself outside, the cool night air hitting him like a wave. He leaned against a nearby wall, his breath coming in ragged gasps, trying to collect himself. The confrontation had ignited a fire within him, but it also left him feeling exposed and vulnerable. "Are you okay?" Laura asked, her voice soft as she approached him, concern etched on her face. "I'm fine," Marcus replied, though he knew he was anything but. "I just need to figure out my next move." Laura nodded, her gaze steady. "You have to be careful. Caldwell won't let this go. He'll come after you." "I know," Marcus said, determination settling over him like armor. "But I have to see this through. I can't let him continue to operate without consequences." As they stood together in the shadows, a plan began to form in Marcus's mind. He needed to gather more evidence, something that would tie Caldwell directly to the illicit activities swirling around the club. He couldn't do it alone. He needed Laura's help. "Laura," he said, his voice low but urgent, "I need you to help me gain access to the areas where these deliveries are happening. If we can catch Caldwell in the act, we can expose him for good." She hesitated, glancing back toward the club. "It's risky, Marcus. If he finds out—" "I know it is," he interrupted, his tone firm. "But I can't let fear dictate my actions. We have to take this chance." Laura's expression softened as she met his gaze. "All right, I'll help you. But we have to be smart about this. We can't afford to make mistakes." With a plan in motion, Marcus felt a renewed sense of purpose. Together, they would infiltrate the depths of the country club's operations and unearth the truth hidden beneath layers of privilege and corruption. As they re-entered the club, the atmosphere felt charged, a silent agreement hanging between them. They were on a mission, and nothing would deter them from shining a light on the shadows lurking within the Caldwell Country Club. Tonight, they would gather the evidence that could bring down Richard Caldwell and turn the tides in their favor. And as Marcus stepped back into the fray, he could feel the weight of justice pressing down on his shoulders, a burden he was willing to carry for those who had suffered in silence for far too long. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden hue over the lavish Caldwell Country Club, Marcus felt a familiar tension coil in his gut. The gala was in full swing, the air thick with the scent of expensive perfume and the low hum of laughter. But beneath the surface of this ostentatious celebration, danger lurked, and Marcus was all too aware of it. He stood at the edge of the main lounge, the dazzling crystal chandeliers casting a warm glow over the sea of elegantly dressed members. Wealth dripped from every corner of the room, golden cufflinks, shimmering gowns, and laughter that rang hollow against the backdrop of privilege. Marcus adjusted the cufflinks on his tailored suit, a deep navy blue that contrasted sharply with the white surroundings he was infiltrating. He had come too far to back down now. He spotted Laura across the room, her dark hair pulled back in a sleek bun, expertly mixing drinks at the bar. Her presence was a small comfort in the suffocating atmosphere of the country club. As she caught his eye, she offered a brief nod, the weight of their shared mission palpable between them. He could see the tension in her posture, the way her fingers moved with purpose, yet held an underlying anxiety. She knew the stakes just as he did. With a deep breath, Marcus made his way through the crowd, his heart pounding in rhythm with the jazz band playing softly in the background. This was it, the moment he had been waiting for. He needed to gather evidence during the gala, an opportunity to expose Caldwell's corruption once and for all. As he approached the bar, the chatter of the guests faded into a dull roar, and he focused on Laura. "We need to find a way to get close to Caldwell," he said, leaning in to ensure his words would not carry to prying ears. "If we can gather evidence tonight, we might finally have something solid to bring him down." "Agreed," Laura replied, her voice steady but low. "But we have to be cautious. Caldwell is unpredictable, and if he senses we're onto him, he won't hesitate to retaliate." Marcus nodded, understanding the gravity of her words. "Let's keep our eyes open. We need to blend in and look for any opportunity that arises." The two exchanged a determined glance before Laura resumed her duties behind the bar, pouring drinks for the guests. Marcus stepped back into the throng of members, his eyes scanning the room for any sign of Caldwell. The man was the embodiment of arrogance, commanding attention as he reveled in the spotlight. Suddenly, a commotion erupted on the far side of the lounge, drawing everyone's attention. A member had spilled a drink, and laughter erupted around him, the sound echoing in the lavish space. Marcus seized the moment, moving closer to the edge of the crowd, where he could catch snippets of conversation without drawing suspicion. "Did you hear Caldwell's new partnership?" one member boasted, his voice dripping with entitlement. "He's going to make a fortune. I heard it involves some serious backdoor dealings." Marcus's ears perked up. This was the kind of information he needed. He edged closer, straining to hear more, but the crowd began to dissipate, moving back toward the center of the room, where Caldwell was now addressing the guests. "Ladies and gentlemen," Caldwell's voice boomed, commanding the room's attention. "Tonight, we celebrate not just our successes, but the future that lies ahead. I'm thrilled to announce a groundbreaking partnership that will elevate our club to new heights." The crowd erupted in applause, but Marcus felt a knot of dread settle in his stomach. This wasn't just about expansion. It was about consolidating power and wealth, ensuring that the elite remained untouchable. He had to gather evidence during this announcement, and as Caldwell spoke, he felt a surge of adrenaline course through him. "Together, we will forge new alliances, bringing in investments that will not only enhance our facilities, but also solidify our status as the premier country club in the region," Caldwell continued, his smug smile inviting admiration. "Let us remember that our exclusivity is what makes us exceptional. We must protect it at all costs." Marcus's heart raced. This was the moment he had been waiting for, the opportunity to gather evidence that could expose Caldwell's corruption. He discreetly pulled out his phone, setting it to record as he moved closer to the front of the crowd. The tension in the air was palpable, and he could feel the eyes of the members on him, each gaze heavy with suspicion. Just then, Caldwell's gaze locked onto Marcus, a predatory glint in his eyes. "And let's not forget the importance of maintaining our standards," he said, his voice dripping with disdain. "We must ensure that our club remains exclusive, a sanctuary for those who truly belong." The crowd erupted in applause once more, but Marcus felt the air grow thick with tension. He was an outsider, and Caldwell's words cut deep. Anger bubbled within him, but he forced himself to remain calm. He had to be strategic about this. As Caldwell continued his speech, Marcus's focus sharpened. He needed to catch the incriminating evidence that would tie Caldwell directly to the illicit activities swirling around the club. Just as he was about to pull back and reposition himself, the lights flickered ominously. The room plunged into darkness, gasps filling the air. In that moment of chaos, Marcus felt a surge of urgency. This was his chance. He slipped away from the crowd, navigating through the shadows as the members fumbled to regain their composure. He ducked into a nearby hallway, his heart pounding in his chest. As he turned the corner, he overheard two voices speaking in hushed tones just outside a door marked "Staff Only." "Did you hear about the cash deliveries?" one voice whispered, a hint of anxiety creeping into his tone. "They're bigger than ever, and Caldwell's been pushing for more." "Yeah, but if anyone finds out—" The other voice cut off abruptly as the door creaked open, and Marcus ducked back into the shadows, pressing himself against the wall. He held his breath, straining to hear. The first voice spoke again. "Caldwell's losing his grip. We need to keep this under wraps, or it'll be the end of us." Marcus's heart raced. This was exactly what he needed. He slipped further into the shadows, ready to record, but just as he pulled out his phone, a figure emerged from the doorway. It was Tom, the security guard who had confronted him earlier, his eyes scanning the hallway. "What are you doing here?" Tom demanded, stepping closer, his voice low and threatening. "You shouldn't be in this part of the club." Marcus felt the weight of the situation escalate, but he couldn't back down. I'm just checking things out, he said, forcing a casual demeanor. Nothing wrong with a little curiosity, right? Curiosity can get you kicked out, Tom shot back, stepping closer. I don't want to see your face around here again, understand? Before Marcus could respond, the lights flickered back to life, illuminating the hallway. He could see Tom's expression harden, suspicion etched on his features. Just then, Laura appeared, her expression fierce. Tom, back off! He's with me! She said, stepping between Marcus and the guard, her presence a shield. Tom hesitated, glancing between the two of them. He doesn't be long here, Laura. He's just a guest, Laura interjected, her voice firm. And if you keep harassing him, I'll report you to Caldwell. We don't need this kind of drama during the gala. Tom scowled but stepped back, clearly unwilling to challenge Laura further. Fine, but keep an eye on him, he muttered before walking away. Thanks, Marcus said, exhaling a shaky breath as the adrenaline began to ebb. I didn't think he'd show up here. Just be careful, Laura replied, her eyes darting around the hallway. Caldwell's not going to let this go. He's got eyes everywhere. I know, Marcus said, determination hardening his resolve. But I have to see this through. I can't let him continue to operate without consequences. As they stood together in the shadows, a plan began to form in Marcus's mind. They needed to gather more evidence, something that would tie Caldwell directly to the illicit activities swirling around the club. He couldn't do it alone. He needed Laura's help. Laura, he said, his voice low but urgent, I need you to help me gain access to the areas where those cash deliveries are happening. If we can catch Caldwell in the act, we can expose him for good. She hesitated, glancing back toward the bustling gala. It's risky, Marcus. If he finds out, I know it is, he interrupted, his tone firm. But I can't let fear dictate my actions. We have to take this chance. Laura's expression softened as she met his gaze. All right, I'll help you. But we have to be smart about this. We can't afford to make mistakes. With a plan in motion, Marcus felt a renewed sense of purpose. Together, they would infiltrate the depths of the country club's operations and unearth the truth hidden beneath layers of privilege and corruption. As they re-entered the club, the atmosphere felt charged, a silent agreement hanging between them. They were on a mission, and nothing would deter them from shining a light on the shadows lurking within the Caldwell Country Club. They navigated back to the main lounge, where the gala was progressing. The band played a lively tune, and members swayed to the music, oblivious to the tension that simmered beneath the surface. Marcus felt the weight of the moment pressing down on him. They were running out of time. Let's split up, Laura suggested, her eyes scanning the room. I'll keep an eye on Caldwell, see if he goes anywhere suspicious. You try to find out more about those deliveries. Sounds good, Marcus agreed, his heart racing as they moved in different directions. He felt a mix of excitement and dread, knowing that every step brought them closer to the truth. As he mingled with the crowd, Marcus's instincts kicked in. He approached a group of members gathered near a table, their laughter ringing hollow in the lavish space. He blended in, offering a disarming smile as he listened to their conversation. Did you hear about Caldwell's latest scheme? One member boasted, slapping his palm on the table. He's got his fingers in so many pies, it's only a matter of time before he gets caught. Good for him, another chimed in, his tone dripping with sarcasm. But let's hope he doesn't lose it all to a lawsuit. Those minorities are always looking for a handout. Marcus clenched his fists, the casual racism cutting deep. The glint of their champagne flutes caught the light, and he couldn't help but feel that their laughter was a mockery of everything he stood for. He needed to get closer, to dig deeper. Just then, a voice interrupted his thoughts. I see you found the elite, a woman said, her tone teasing. She was dressed in a sleek black gown, her dark hair cascading over her shoulders. What brings you to our little gathering? Just exploring, Marcus replied, forcing a smile, trying to learn more about the club and its members. Well, you've certainly picked a fascinating place to do that, she replied, her eyes glinting with curiosity. Just be careful not to tread on any toes. Caldwell doesn't take kindly to intruders. Marcus felt a chill run down his spine at the mention of Caldwell's name. I'll keep that in mind, he said, his voice steady. As the evening wore on, Marcus continued to gather snippets of conversation, piecing together the puzzle of Caldwell's operations. He felt the tension in the air grow thicker, a sense of foreboding settling over him as the gala progressed. Suddenly, his phone vibrated in his pocket. He glanced at the screen. Laura had sent him a message. Caldwell is heading to the back entrance. Meet me there. His heart raced, and he slipped away from the crowd, weaving through the throng of members until he reached the back of the club. The dimly lit hallway felt ominous, and he could hear muffled voices coming from behind a closed door. He turned the corner, where he found Laura waiting, her expression tense. He's in there, she whispered, nodding toward the door. I overheard him talking about the cash deliveries. This is our chance. Let's do it, Marcus said, adrenaline surging through him. They needed to act quickly before Caldwell slipped away again. As they approached the door, Marcus's heart raced. He felt the weight of the moment pressing down on him, a mixture of excitement and fear coursing through his veins. He could hear Caldwell's voice on the other side, his tone low and conspiratorial. Make sure everything is ready for the next shipment, Caldwell said, his voice dripping with authority. We can't afford any mistakes. If anyone finds out about our little operation... Marcus exchanged a glance with Laura, their shared determination igniting a spark of hope. This was the moment they had been waiting for. With a deep breath, Marcus pushed the door open, stepping into the room just as Caldwell turned, his eyes widening in shock. What the hell are you doing here? Caldwell's voice boomed, panic flickering across his face as he took a step back. Before Marcus could respond, two burly men flanked Caldwell, their expressions shifting from surprise to hostility. Get out! One of them shouted, advancing toward Marcus. Wait, Laura interjected, stepping forward. We're here to talk. We know what you're doing, Caldwell. Caldwell's face twisted with fury. You have no idea who you're dealing with. Get them out of here. He turned to the men, his voice a low growl. Marcus felt the tension escalate, adrenaline pumping through his veins. He had to think fast. We have evidence, he said, trying to keep his voice steady. Evidence of your illegal activities. If you don't want this to go public, you'll listen to us. Caldwell's eyes narrowed, calculating his options. You think you can intimidate me with threats? I own this place, you're nothing. But Marcus stood his ground, fueled by the anger he had witnessed throughout the evening. You're a coward hiding behind a wall of privilege. We won't let you get away with this. Just then, a commotion erupted outside the door. The sound of shouting and footsteps echoed in the hallway, and Marcus's heart raced. The members were starting to notice something was wrong. We need to go, Laura urged, her voice urgent. No, Marcus replied, his determination solidifying. We're not leaving until we have something concrete. Caldwell's expression shifted, a flicker of fear crossing his face. You're making a mistake. You don't know what you're getting into. Try me, Marcus shot back, feeling the heat of the moment. This was it, the confrontation that could change everything. Suddenly, the door burst open, and a group of security guards flooded into the room, their eyes wide with confusion. What's going on? One of them shouted, taking in the scene. In that instant, Caldwell's facade shattered. They're trespassing! Throw them out! He yelled, pointing a finger at Marcus and Laura. The guards hesitated, caught between their loyalty to Caldwell and the chaotic scene unfolding before them. Marcus seized the opportunity, stepping forward. We have evidence of illegal activities happening in this club, including discrimination and money laundering. You need to listen to us. The guards exchanged glances, uncertainty flickering in their eyes. Caldwell's face turned red with anger, and he stepped forward, his voice low and threatening. You think you can just waltz in here and make accusations? You'll regret this. But before he could say more, Laura pulled out her phone, displaying the recordings they had gathered. We have everything documented, she said, her voice firm. You can't silence us. The guards shifted, the weight of the situation settling over them. Realization dawned in their eyes, and one of them stepped forward, cautiously addressing Caldwell. We need to investigate these claims. Caldwell's expression twisted with rage. You can't be serious. This is my club. Not for long if these allegations are true, Marcus replied, his voice steady. You're going to have to answer for your actions. As the guards moved in to detain Caldwell, Marcus felt a rush of triumph. They had done it. They had exposed the corruption that had festered within the walls of the country club for far too long. As Caldwell was led away, his face contorted with rage, Marcus turned to Laura, a grin breaking across his face. We did it. Yeah, we did, Laura replied, her eyes shining with pride. But this isn't over. We need to make sure the truth comes out. As they stepped back into the main lounge, the atmosphere had shifted. Members were buzzing with confusion, whispers of Caldwell's downfall rippling through the crowd like a wave. Marcus felt a surge of hope. "This could be the start of something new," he said, glancing at Laura. "We can help transform this place into what it should have been all along." Laura smiled, her expression determined. "Together, we can make a difference." As they stood amidst the opulence of the country club, the laughter and chatter of the members now felt different, less oppressive. They were no longer just spectators in a game of privilege. They were agents of change, ready to dismantle the elitism that had defined this space for far too long. And as the night wore on, Marcus felt the weight of justice pressing down on his shoulders, a burden he was willing to carry for those who had suffered in silence for far too long. Together, they would shine a light on the shadows lurking within, turning the tide against the darkness that had threatened to consume them all. As the last notes of the jazz band faded into the background, Marcus felt a surge of adrenaline coursing through his veins. The confrontation with Richard Caldwell had laid bare the corruption festering within the Caldwell Country Club, and now, with the guards moving to detain him, Marcus sensed the tide was turning. But amidst the chaos, he knew the battle wasn't over. They needed to ensure the truth would come to light. Marcus and Laura stood side by side, watching as Caldwell's face twisted in rage, his arrogance crumbling under the weight of their evidence. The guards, caught between loyalty and the undeniable reality of the situation, hesitated at first, but the mounting evidence forced their hand. Caldwell's protests echoed in the room, but Marcus felt a sense of vindication wash over him. They had done it. They had exposed him. "You can't do this! I own this place!" Caldwell shouted, his voice laced with desperation as the guards moved to escort him out. "Not for long if these allegations are true," Marcus shot back, his voice steady. He could feel the eyes of the club members on him, a mixture of confusion and intrigue. They had witnessed the confrontation, and now the air was thick with anticipation. As Caldwell was led away, Marcus turned to Laura, a grin breaking across his face. "We did it." "Yeah, we did," Laura replied, her eyes sparkling with determination. "But this isn't over. We need to ensure the truth comes out." The sound of murmurs began to swell in the main lounge, members whispering furiously among themselves. Some looked on with shock, while others wore expressions of disbelief. Marcus felt a rush of power, knowing they had struck a chord that would resonate throughout the club. "Let's get out of here," Laura urged, her voice low but urgent, "before Caldwell has a chance to retaliate." Marcus nodded, scanning the room one last time. "We'll need to gather our evidence and get it to the authorities. This is bigger than just the club. It could expose a network of corruption." They slipped out of the crowded lounge, navigating through the back hallways of the club. The ambiance shifted as they moved away from the glitz and glamour, the air growing heavier with the weight of their mission. As they approached the staff entrance, Marcus felt his heart hammering in his chest. "Do you think anyone will come after us?" he asked, glancing over his shoulder. Laura shook her head, her expression resolute. "We have to be smart about this. If we can get the evidence to the right people, Caldwell won't be able to silence us." Marcus could feel the adrenaline coursing through him, a heady mix of fear and excitement. "Let's do it. I've got everything recorded on my phone." They stepped outside into the cool night air, the stars twinkling overhead as they made their way to Marcus's car parked nearby. He fished the keys from his pocket, his hands trembling slightly with the weight of their victory and the uncertainty that lay ahead. As they climbed into the car, Marcus glanced at Laura. "Are you ready for this? It's going to be a fight to get the truth out there." "I've been ready for a long time, Marcus," Laura replied, her voice steady. "Let's get it done." With determination surging through him, Marcus started the engine, the rumble vibrating beneath them. He pulled out of the parking lot, the bright lights of the country club fading into the distance. The night was still and quiet, but inside, Marcus felt the storm of emotions swirling. "Where do we go from here?" he asked, his eyes fixed on the road ahead. "We need to get to the police station," Laura suggested, her brow furrowing in concentration. "They need to see the evidence we've gathered, and we need to make sure it's presented in a way that can't be ignored." Marcus nodded, the weight of the moment settling over him. "Right. We'll present everything. Recordings, documents, everything. They'll see just how deep Caldwell's corruption runs." As they drove through the darkened streets, Marcus couldn't shake the feeling of unease settling in his gut. The country club had been a microcosm of a much larger problem, and he was acutely aware that exposing Caldwell was only the beginning. They were about to challenge a system that had thrived on silence and complicity. "Marcus," Laura's voice broke through his thoughts. "I know this is a lot to take in, but we're doing the right thing. This isn't just about Caldwell. It's about everyone who's ever been marginalized or silenced." He turned to her, the weight of her words resonating deeply. "You're right. It's about time someone stood up to this kind of injustice." The police station loomed ahead, its fluorescent lights casting an eerie glow against the night sky. Marcus parked the car and took a deep breath, his heart racing. "Let's do this." They stepped inside, the atmosphere starkly contrasting the opulence of the country club. The air was thick with the scent of stale coffee, and officers moved about with purpose, their faces etched with the fatigue of long hours. "Can I help you?" a receptionist asked, her tone professional yet weary. "Yeah, we need to speak with someone about a serious case," Marcus said, trying to keep his voice steady. "We have evidence of illegal activities connected to Richard Caldwell." The receptionist raised an eyebrow, skepticism flickering in her gaze. "You'll need to fill out some forms first, then I'll see if—" Laura interjected, her voice firm. "No, you don't understand. This is urgent. Lives are at stake, and we have evidence that could expose a criminal operation." The receptionist hesitated, glancing at her supervisor before nodding reluctantly. "All right, wait here. I'll see if someone can meet with you." As they waited, Marcus felt the weight of their mission bearing down on him. He glanced at Laura, who was tapping her fingers nervously against the counter. "We're doing the right thing," he reassured her, though doubt lingered at the back of his mind. Moments later, a tall officer approached them, his expression serious. "I'm Officer Reynolds. What seems to be the problem?" Marcus took a deep breath, steeling himself. "We have information about Richard Caldwell, the owner of the Caldwell Country Club. He's been involved in money laundering and discriminatory practices." Reynolds studied them for a moment, his brow furrowing. "Do you have any proof?" "Yeah," Marcus replied, pulling out his phone. "I've recorded conversations and gathered documents that detail his operations. We need you to take this seriously." Reynolds nodded, gesturing for them to follow him to a nearby conference room. As they entered, Marcus felt a rush of anticipation. This was the moment they had fought for, the chance to expose the truth. "All right. Let's hear what you've got," Reynolds said, sitting down across from them. Marcus activated his phone, the screen lighting up as he navigated to the recordings. "These are conversations that took place at the club. Caldwell discusses cash deliveries and illegal activities." As the recordings played, the tension in the room escalated. Marcus could see the officer's expression shift from skepticism to concern, his brow furrowing as he began to comprehend the gravity of the situation. "Do you have any documentation to back this up?" Reynolds asked, leaning forward, his tone more earnest. "Absolutely," Laura chimed in, pulling out a folder filled with notes and evidence. "We've gathered everything we could find, emails, transaction records, even witness statements from staff members." The officer sifted through the documents, his eyes widening as he absorbed the information. "This is substantial. If what you're saying is true, it could lead to serious charges against Caldwell." Marcus felt a swell of hope. "We need to act quickly. If he gets wind of this, he'll do everything in his power to cover it up." Reynolds nodded, determination flickering in his gaze. "I'll get a team together. We'll need to follow up on these leads and conduct a thorough investigation." As they continued to discuss the details, Marcus felt a sense of relief wash over him. They were finally taking action, and the truth was on the brink of being exposed. He glanced at Laura, who wore a look of fierce determination. "Thank you for believing us," she said, her voice steady. "This isn't just about Caldwell. It's about making sure people are held accountable for their actions." Reynolds nodded, a look of understanding crossing his face. "I appreciate your courage in coming forward. We need more people willing to stand up against corruption." As the officer gathered the evidence, Marcus felt the weight of the moment settle over him. They were on the cusp of something significant. A chance to dismantle the system that had allowed Caldwell to operate with impunity. After what felt like hours of discussions and clarifications, Reynolds stood up, determination etched on his face. "We'll get to work on this immediately. You two have done a great service by bringing this to our attention." "Thank you," Marcus replied, a sense of gratitude swelling within him. "We just want to see justice served." As they left the police station, the cool night air felt invigorating. The weight of their mission had shifted. They had taken a significant step toward justice. "I can't believe we did it," Laura said, her voice filled with a mix of disbelief and excitement. "We actually got through to them." "Yeah," Marcus replied, a smile breaking across his face. "And it's just the beginning. We'll make sure Caldwell faces the consequences of his actions." In the days that followed, news broke of Caldwell's arrest, the whispers that had once filled the walls of the country club now echoing in the streets. The scandal sent shockwaves through the community, revealing the extent of the corruption that had festered within the Caldwell Country Club for years. Marcus and Laura worked tirelessly, using their voices to advocate for change and ensure that the club would no longer be a bastion of exclusivity. They held meetings with community leaders, discussing ways to transform the space into an inclusive environment that embraced diversity. As they planned for the future, Marcus felt a renewed sense of purpose. He was no longer just a private investigator. He was an agent of change, committed to dismantling the barriers that had held so many back. One evening, as they sat together at a local cafe, Laura looked across the table, a spark of hope in her eyes. "What if we turned the country club into a community center, a place for everyone, regardless of background?" "That's a brilliant idea," Marcus replied, excitement bubbling within him. "We could offer programs, workshops, and events that foster inclusivity." As they brainstormed ideas, laughter filled the air around them, a stark contrast to the tension that had once enveloped the country club. They were no longer fighting against a system. They were building a new one that embraced diversity and equality. "Who knew karma could come with a side of golf?" Marcus quipped, a grin spreading across his face. Laura laughed, the sound bright and genuine. "I think we're just getting started. There's so much more to do." As they continued to discuss their plans, Marcus felt a sense of hope and determination surging within him. They had faced adversity, but they had emerged stronger, united in their mission to create a more just and inclusive community. And as the sun set on the horizon, casting a warm glow over their future, Marcus knew that this was just the beginning. Together, they would continue to fight for justice, ensuring that the echoes of the past would transform into a symphony of change for generations to come.